Ladies and gentlemen, Cowboys Nation, football fans, and sports lovers everywhere, hold onto your hats because we are diving headfirst into one of the most earth-shattering developments in recent NFL history. If you thought the Dallas Cowboys offseason was already a roller coaster, what just happened in Big D has sent shockwaves through the entire league, leaving fans, analysts, and even players reeling in disbelief. This isn't just another roster move or a minor tweak to the depth chart. No, this is a seismic shift, a gut punch to the heart of Cowboys Nation, and quite possibly the most emotionally charged moment we've seen from this franchise in years. The news broke like a thunderclap. DeMarcus Lawrence, the heartbeat of the Cowboys' defense, a veteran leader, and a player who has worn the star with unmatched pride for over a decade, is no longer with the team. And if that wasn't enough to make your jaw drop, the Cowboys also announced the departure of Jordan Lewis, the steady, reliable slot cornerback who has been a quiet but critical pillar in the secondary. These aren't just roster changes, they're foundational cracks in a team already navigating a precarious offseason. So, buckle up, because we're about to unpack every angle of this breaking news, from the raw emotion to the strategic fallout, and what it means for the Dallas Cowboys 2025 season. Let's start with DeMarcus Lawrence, because his exit is the one that's hitting hardest. For those who followed the Cowboys over the years, Lawrence isn't just a player, he's an institution. A relentless pass rusher, a vocal leader, and a symbol of the grit and toughness that Dallas has prided itself on. For over a decade, he's been the guy in the trenches, chasing down quarterbacks, setting the edge, and delivering bone-rattling plays that sent a T&T stadium into a frenzy. His name echoed through the stands every time he brought down an opponent, and his presence in the locker room was just as powerful. Lawrence wasn't just a playmaker, he was a culture setter, the kind of veteran who could rally a team through adversity and mentor young players through the grind of an NFL season. To see him walk away so suddenly, with no warning, no rumors, no leaks from the usual insiders, it's nothing short of stunning. The team's announcement was brief, almost clinical, followed by an emotional farewell from Lawrence himself that left fans scrolling through social media in a daze, wondering what just happened. The shock of Lawrence's departure lies not just in who he is, but in how it went down. This wasn't a slow burn, with weeks of speculation or cryptic tweets from beat reporters. There was no buildup, no whispers of contract disputes or trade talks. 1 minute, Lawrence was the unquestioned face of the defense, and the next, he was gone. The lack of context only amplified the disbelief. Was this a cap casualty? A mutual parting of ways? A clash of visions? Early reports suggest it's more complicated than a simple numbers game. Insiders are now saying that Lawrence had been growing frustrated for months, not just with the team's postseason collapses, but with the direction of the defensive scheme itself. Sources close to the situation claim he felt the system had grown stale, that his role was being underutilized, and that the front office no longer saw him as the cornerstone they once did. For a player who's given everything to the franchise blood, sweat, and countless clutch moments, this kind of disconnect must have felt like a betrayal. And the timing? It couldn't be worse. The Cowboys were already walking a tightrope after last season's playoff disappointment, with fans and analysts alike questioning whether this team has what it takes to compete in a loaded NFC. The roster was in transition, with key players like CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott still navigating contract uncertainties, and now the defense, which was supposed to be the team's backbone, is suddenly without its most reliable leader. Lawrence's production, his ability to disrupt offenses and command double teams, was critical, but his intangibles were even more valuable. He was the guy who set the tone in practice, who held teammates accountable, who brought swagger to a unit that thrived on intensity. Replacing his stats is one thing, replacing his presence is another entirely. And as fans flooded social media with tributes, memes, and outright outrage, it became clear that this move wasn't just a roster decision, it was a cultural shift that could redefine the Cowboys' identity. But the hits didn't stop with Lawrence. Just as Cowboys Nation was grappling with that bombshell, another piece of news dropped. Jordan Lewis, the dependable slot cornerback who's been a steady hand in the secondary for years, is also out. While Lewis's departure doesn't carry the same seismic weight as Lawrence's, it's still a significant loss. Lewis was the kind of player who didn't always make headlines, but always made plays. His ability to lock down slot receivers, read quarterbacks, and execute in high-pressure situations made him a quiet cornerstone of the defense. And here's where it gets even more painful. Reports are now surfacing that Lewis is already in talks with a rival NFC team. The idea of seeing him suit up for a competitor, potentially lining up against Dallas in a crucial divisional game, is a bitter pill to swallow. For a fan base already on edge, this feels like salt in the wound. So, where does this leave the Cowboys' defense? In a word, vulnerable. With Lawrence and Lewis gone, the unit suddenly looks perilously thin, and we're just weeks away from training camp, a time when teams are supposed to be fine-tuning their game plan, not scrambling to plug gaping holes. The spotlight now swings to Micah Parsons, the third-year phenom who's already one of the most electrifying talents in the NFL. Parsons has the raw ability to dominate games single-handedly, with his speed, power, and football IQ making him a nightmare for opposing offenses. But now, he's not just a playmaker, he's expected to be the heart and soul of this defense, the anchor that holds everything together when adversity hits. That's a massive burden for a 26-year-old, no matter how talented he is. Behind Parsons, the Cowboys are relying on rotational players like Dante Fowler Jr. and Sam Williams, both of whom have shown flashes of potential but haven't proven they can handle the relentless pressure of being the front line week after week. These are high-upside guys, but they're not Lawrence. Not yet, and maybe not ever. In the secondary, the picture is just as concerning. With Lewis gone and Trayvon Diggs still working his way back from injury, the Cowboys are leaning heavily on unproven talent. Diggs is a former All-Pro, and there's optimism about his recovery, but there's no guarantee he'll return to his ball-hawking best right away. In the meantime, names like Darren Bland and Israel Mukuamu are being thrust into bigger roles. Bland, in particular, has shown promise, but asking him to step up as a full-time starter in a conference loaded with elite quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts, Kirk Cousins, and Matthew Stafford is a tall order. The margin for error in the NFC is razor thin, and the Cowboys' secondary suddenly feels like a gamble. Experience can't be manufactured overnight, and in the NFLA, lack of it is often punished brutally. What's fueling the frustration even more is the silence from the front office. There's been no extended press conference, no heartfelt explanation from Jerry Jones, no clear roadmap for how the team plans to move forward. In the absence of communication, fans are left to speculate, and the speculation is not kind. Some believe this is a short-term cap strategy, a way to free up space for massive extensions for players like CeeDee Lamb or even Dak Prescott, whose own future remains uncertain. Others see it as the start of a stealth rebuild, a signal that the Cowboys are preparing to overhaul the roster over the next few seasons. But without transparency, it's impossible to know, and that uncertainty is driving fans up the wall. Social media is a wildfire of emotions. Reddit threads are overflowing with tributes to Lawrence. X is flooded with heartbreak and anger, and longtime season ticket holders are threatening to walk away unless the team provides some clarity. This isn't just another off-season headline. It feels like something fundamental has been lost. Let's talk about the ripple effects, because they're real. When players like Lawrence and Lewis leave, it's not just about the X's and O's. It's about the intangibles, the leadership, the mentorship, the swagger that defines a team's culture. Lawrence was the guy rookies looked to on their first day, the one who showed them what it meant to be a Cowboy. Lewis was the steady hand in the secondary, the one who could calm nerves in a tense fourth quarter. Without them, position groups lose their mentors, coaches lose their trusted sounding boards, and a team that prided itself on toughness suddenly has to reinvent itself on the fly. That's not easy in a league where chemistry and continuity are everything. The Cowboys' defense was supposed to be their strength, the unit that could carry them through a tough schedule and a brutal playoff race. Now it's a question mark, and the answers aren't coming anytime soon. On the offensive side, the pressure is now sky high. Dak Prescott, who's been under scrutiny for years, will need to play the best football of his career to keep this team in contention. CeeDee Lamb, fresh off a massive new contract, is carrying the WR1 torch and will be expected to dominate every week. Players like Brandon Cooks, Tony Pollard, and Jake Ferguson will need to step up in a big way, because while last year's offense was solid, this year it needs to be elite just to keep pace. The Cowboys can't afford to lean on their defense anymore, not with so many unknowns. Every drive, every possession, every play call will carry added weight because the margin for error just got a whole lot smaller. Let's zoom out for a moment and look at the bigger picture, because this isn't just about one or two players. This is about a franchise at a crossroads. The Dallas Cowboys are one of the most storied organizations in sports, with a fan base that spans generations and a brand that carries unmatched weight in the NFL. But right now, the future feels more uncertain than it has in a decade. The departures of Lawrence and Lewis have exposed cracks in the foundation cracks that were already there after years of playoff disappointments and roster turnover. How the Cowboys respond in the coming weeks will determine not just whether 2025 is a success, but whether this team stays relevant or begins a slow decline. So, what's next? The Cowboys have options, but none of them are easy. They could hit the free agent market, but the pool of available talent is thin this late in the offseason. They could lean on their young players, banking on potential over experience, but that's a gamble in a league where mistakes are costly. They could try to make a splash with a trade, but that would require cap gymnastics and a willingness to part with draft picks. Whatever they do, they'll need to act fast because the clock is ticking. Training camp is right around the corner, and the NFC isn't getting any easier. Teams like the Philadelphia Eagles, San Francisco 49ers, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers are loaded, and they won't hesitate to exploit Dallas's weaknesses. For now, the focus is on Micah Parsons and the young core. Parsons is a generational talent, the kind of player who can change games with a single play. But even he can't do it alone. The Cowboys will need contributions from every level of the defense veterans stepping up, rookies rising to the occasion, and coaches scheming creatively to mask deficiencies. On offense, Prescott and Lamb will need to carry the load, with McCarthy dialing up his best game plans yet. And above all, the front office will need to communicate, to give fans a reason to believe that this isn't the beginning of the end. As we wrap up, let's take a moment to reflect on what DeMarcus Lawrence and Jordan Lewis meant to this team. Lawrence was more than a pass rusher. He was a warrior, a leader, and a fan favorite who gave everything to the star. Lewis was the unsung hero, the guy who did the dirty work and made everyone around him better. Their departures mark the end of an era, but they also open the door for a new chapter. The question is whether the Cowboys can write a story that lives up to the legacy these players left behind. One thing's for sure, the road ahead is going to be wild, dramatic, and full of twists, because when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys, drama is never far behind. Cowboys Nation, I want to hear from you. How are you feeling about this news? Are you heartbroken over Lawrence and Lewis? Do you trust the front office to turn this around? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going. This is your team, your passion, and your story. Stay tuned, because we'll be covering every angle of this developing saga as the off-season unfolds. Until then, keep the faith, and let's go Cowboys.